Hi, welcome to Classics You Slept Through. Kate Chopin is here to say, Edna is one horny pontilier. That's right, we're doing the Awakening wrap-up episode. I'm your host, Kyle Davis, along with a girl who is not going to spit some bars this episode. I don't think, anyway. My sister, Meredith.
What's up? The next line should have been, and she wants to get it on with Alice.
Arabin. That's right.
Arabin waiting for her every day. Every day?
Wow. So I was mistaken. She is going to drop some rhymes on us.
Oh, God.
Who knew?
That's what I should do for a living.
Exactly. Exactly. As you can see, I don't do that for a living. So we are talking about The Awakening by Kate Chopin. So what do you think, Mare? We have finished the book. I guess I shouldn't ask you what you think.
No, I should ask you what you think. Everyone knows what I think. What did you think?
What did I think? So we'll start with I liked it. It was good. It was not what I was expecting. I guess maybe I didn't give it enough credit for being as old as it is with my expectations. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No.
Like I guess I mean maybe I guess we'll get into it, but I guess for a book from 1899,
mm-hmm.
maybe it was super shocking. I guess I was expecting something even more progressive and shocking. And after our first section, I thought that it was kind of going there, and then, and maybe this is just modern eyes reading the book, I felt that the other two sections that we read, the rest of the book, I thought it just was a normal book. Like I didn't find it.
Where did you think it was going that would have been more shocking?
Well, I don't know. That was the thing. I mean, I thought I detected in the very early bit some lesbian undertones between Edna and Adele. I guess that would have been even more shocking for 1899.
Sure.
But I guess in summary, the shockingness is a woman likes sex and her dead bedroom husband kind of sucks. I mean, which from a modern perspective, that's not all that shocking, right? I wasn't
not
shocked
for us,
by
anyway.
that.
Not for
right.
I mean, there are people who would never let their children read this book. Never. Because it's that bad. I mean, where my former job, I worked and spoke with parents about the books we were reading if they had concerns. And I was shocked to find out there are people in the world, and I don't know why I was shocked to find this out, people in the world who were incensed that their child read the word hell in a book.
What?
And I had to have a conversation about
at what age?
Middle school. And the word damn. And I remember I thought I was like, well, here's my great point, upset parent. In the world of inappropriate language, this really isn't that bad. And that was not the right thing to say. She was like, they are all equal. And I was like, really? Because if I drop the C word on you right now, you're really going to get upset. Versus
chocolate? Why did she get mad about that?
But, we have family who are like, you can't read about. I remember them being so upset about Harry Potter. You couldn't read about witchcraft. So reading about extramarital affair, that would be terrible. Right?
Don't turn on the evening news, I guess, would be my response to that. Yeah, so I guess we kind of confronted this in the real world a little bit because, I don't know, stupidly, not stupidly, we've let the kids start listening to the Hamilton soundtrack, which has words that they don't know and did not know
we got
prior
the censored
to.
Version, right?
Well, it censors out the swear words.
Oh, but not the content.
But not the content. So it doesn't censor out whore or bastard.
Oh, really? I would think.
Yeah.
I would think.
My kids for the longest time thought it was, son of a pastor. Like, well, that's not what he was saying. But so we explained it to them. No, it's not a nice word, kids. We don't say it in public. We don't call other people this, but this is what it means. So we kind of went through that. Yeah, it censors out the swear words. Fortunately, with just a dropped silence, it doesn't beep, but it just drops the silence. But there's definitely, other things that were like, I heard your mother say, come again. Yes, he's just a very nice man, and she likes he's very polite when he visits. So she said, yes, invite him over for dinner. That's how we handled that one, but anyway.
Vincent's like the swear police, and to him right now, well, he knows certain words he shouldn't say that are actually swears, but also shut up and stupid. He treats exactly the same as the F-bomb, so it's really sweet. But when we got home from Rosh Hashanah dinner, and we turned on the news, and RBG had died, I yelled that to Ben in the house, and he dropped the F-bomb, and Vincent immediately was like, Daddy, don't say fuck. Like, it has an O in it. You shouldn't say fuck.
He's Scottish. He's just Scottish, that's all.
And he loves to say, I'll never say stupid. I'll not say stupid. It's not a nice word to say. Mommy, I won't say fuck. It's not good to say fuck. Yeah. I'm like, dude, I get what you're doing right now.
You're just prepping him for a career in political journalism.
Is that what
because
I'm doing?
As we saw, this is the morning after the first debate, folks. So as we're seeing in the post-debate analysis, Joe Biden saying shut up is equally equivalent to Donald Trump not condemning white supremacy and telling the Proud Boys to stand by. I don't think those are quite equal, but anyway.
I have not looked at the much of the post. I mean, what I saw immediately post on all the news stations was almost the same. I guess they didn't have time to construct their narratives, and they were just reacting real time.
Right.
So it wasn't.
It was quite something to react to in real time. But we are not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about horny Kentucky girls getting it on with her dudes in the bayou.
All right. So it wasn't what you expected. You would have been more.
No.
Would you have liked it better with more scandal? Or not scandal, but more shocking to a modern reader?
I don't know if I would have liked it more. I think I would have understood, because the only thing I knew, you had prepped me that this book had a lot of outrage around it, and it was scandalous, and it was et cetera, et cetera. So I was, expecting, I need to tone down my expectations as a modern reader. I thought it was all, there was nothing explicit.
Torpid flower wasn't explicit enough.
Torpid flower. You have to know. I was trying to imagine, like, some man in the early 1900s, like, harumphing in his mustache, billowing as he's like, I can't believe we're reading this. So, and I think, Chopin kind of was digging folks a little bit, because in the very beginning of the book, remember, Edna, she couldn't even hear the word pregnant without blushing and running.
Yeah.
And by the end of the book, she's like, whatever, do what I want.
Well, I read I read that this was one of her last, or the last, I'm not quite sure, books, or it was also one of her greatest, and she didn't write much after this.
Okay. Because
she couldn't get published, for one thing. The dudes of the time,
scandalous.
Yeah, the dudes of the time were gatekeeping for sure.
Right.
I just glanced down at my phone because I looked up critique of The Awakening, and I got a modern critique, and I really like it. I'm going to read it in a second. But nobody read it for a long time, and she pretty much disappeared. And then modern times come about, and, it's one of the great feminist works. So they try to erase her. That's how bad it was.
Right.
Somebody on the internet said Kate Chopin's story was all over the place with one event after another with no sense of progression. The characters aren't interesting at all, ranging from hateable to forgettable. And the former supporting characters are thrown in at random times as if to remind us they are in the story.
Well, it's not their story. It's Edna's story. I mean, I could see that. Like, Adele kind of floats in and out. She's not really fully formed. And Dr. Mandalay just sort of shows up for those 2 chapters. And, you know.
Wait, this gets better.
Arabin has, like, one purpose.
This is better. Nothing in this story, aside from the selfish, neglectful, suicidal Edna, has any real presence in the story. And that ending just felt like a horrendous reflection that made it kind of like feel like a tragic yet pornographic R-rated film.
Wow. I mean, full nudity would get an R rating in American society. This is true.
They call it a travesty of literature. And 4 people found it helpful. Wait, unclick. I don't find it helpful.
Help for this podcast content.
Yeah, I guess this guy's not going to listen to our book. Yeah, or our podcast.
So, shocking factor, not that shocking from a modern perspective. So, like I said, I tried to put myself in the mindset of someone then reading this, and I suppose it would be because it describes not just infidelity, but she wasn't even, like, rampant, right? I mean, she hooks up with Arabin, and that is literally it.
I mean, does infidelity need to be rampant to be bad? I mean, rampant, I guess, would be more shocking.
Well, no, I suppose. But I mean, I guess promiscuity. She wasn't overly promiscuous.
Sure, but she did have 2 affairs. You know, she had an emotional affair, and then she had a physical affair.
Right.
Although, did she? Because if Leonce doesn't know, he's like, you know, a tree in the woods. He wasn't around
now we're
to
digging
hear
into
it.
some deep morality. If you don't get caught, did you really cheat?
Ooh. Mailbag. Give us your stories.
Wow.
We'll give you our moral take.
We've just gone from we've swung away from being a true crime podcast to being a, bro dude talking about hookup podcast.
Oh, God. Do those exist? I'm sure they do.
Oh my goodness, they do.
Oh my God. Anyway, I still think in some ways not her affair is scandalous, but I think even to modern readers, her reflection on motherhood is a little scandalous.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Her disregard for the children.
Yeah. I think because the story that you get, at least as a woman, is that even if you don't want kids, you probably will at some point. I mean...
Right.
Nobody considers that, not nobody, but a lot of people don't consider that people really may not want kids. And then it's like, but you don't want them now, you will later. And then even if you're in the midst of having one, it's like, well, you'll enjoy them once it gets here.
Right.
And once you go through all that, you go through to have your kid, they're going to give it to you and you're immediately going to fall deeply in love with it like you've never felt before. That's the story. Then along comes postpartum depression and nobody understands. And they didn't for a long time. I think it's much more widely understood.
Oh, especially back then, sure.
Yeah. And I did not immediately fall in love with my son. They gave him to me. I was like, oh, he feels like a wet octopus. Now what do I do? What do I do with this little thing? And Ben and I have talked about this, but I felt 2 different, I think, kinds of love. I think a caretaking is what I felt at first. I have to keep this alive. I can't break it. And I, like taking care of it. But I mean, when they're born, they don't have a personality.
No, of course
They
not.
just eat and whatever. Now, my daughter, because of my experience with my first, I felt much more ready and immediately was like, yay, I love this kid, because I think I was projecting who my son is and what it's like to be with him onto her, even though she's got she's getting a personality now that she's 3 months. But, I felt an immediate connection with her because I knew what it was like. Does that make sense?
Right. It does. this is something I think about, not frequently, but I have thought, especially more so when I was younger. I'm sort of past prime childbearing age, but when you're in your late 20s, early 30s, you kind of think about this a lot, and I struggle with it. That idea, obviously I would never force children on anyone, but people that are vehemently against having children, or like, oh, I don't want children,
Mm-hmm.
I would be a terrible parent. And people who have children, that idea you mentioned, like, oh, you'll want them someday, or, you just don't know yet. I mean, it's kind of like surround sound, right? Like, I didn't ever want surround sound, but then I had a roommate when I was much younger who bought a surround sound system, and he plugged it in, and we listened to it, and it was like, okay, this is nice. This is surround sound. It didn't change my life. And a week or two or so later, I get up one Sunday morning and he's watching the Sunday news, and he's got like this shocked look on his face. And I was like, dude, what's the matter? And he says, sit down, listen. I said, okay, sure. And he goes, I was just watching the Sunday talk shows, so I didn't want to bother turning on the surround sound system. So this is just the speakers on the TV. And I listened, and we were both like, oh, wow, this is terrible. This is what we used to listen to? No, turn it on, man. Turn the surround sound back on. So, terrible example with children, but, if you don't have children, you don't know what you're missing until you get them, and then you're like, how did I ever not have them before? Like, they're fantastic. I mean, admittedly, as a parent, there are many times when they are frustrating, and that selfishness is like, I don't want you here. Why are you in my house?
Get out of
But then at the end of the day, you give them that hug and you're like, man, what would I ever do without you guys? Like, my life is totally different now than it would be if I didn't have you.
Didn't you just try to give at least one of them away a few podcasts ago?
Three is probably a little too many. 2 is very manageable. Yeah, I recommend if you got 2, stick there. The third, you're pressing your luck.
Poor Simon. He sang us a beautiful song on the last episode.
He did. The problem is, I'm almost 43. Having a 5-year-old, I'm out of that range. I much prefer having the older kids where you're just like, hey, go take a bath. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Ellen made breakfast for her brothers this morning.
I saw she sent Noni a video. It was the cutest.
I love it.
She is such a little, almost teenager.
Oh, you don't even know.
Especially because she's always been more mature than her age and smarter than her age and all of those things.
Yes.
But it was she made cheesy eggs and there was a 3-part breakfast and it was great.
Yep.
Was it edible?
They ate it. Everybody ate it.
Because she kept saying that William wouldn't eat
recipe
it if it wasn't edible, of course.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, but so you've got kids. You've always wanted kids, though, for the most part.
I mean, I don't know. I honestly, if I look back on my 20s, I don't know that I wanted kids so much as just assumed I was in that sort of, yeah, of course you have kids. Everybody has kids. You get married and you have kids. That's what you do. So that's sort of societal thing.
There was a point when I was like 25 where I was like, yeah, I don't think I want kids. But that was also a reaction to where my life was at the time. And my former life, he was also at a stage where he was like, yeah, I don't think I ever want kids. And so there was a point where I was like, I either also better feel that way or we're going to have problems down the line. Little did I know that wouldn't be the problem. But there are people who know, I don't want kids. Nothing about it seems appealing. Perhaps I didn't have a life. We had a great childhood and a great growing up family-wise,
Right.
There was stuff that was tough, but what?
As I get older and analyze it more, I question that a little more, but anyway.
Mom listens to this. She's going to call you.
I have talked to her about this. It's no surprise to her, so it's okay. I think I have anyway.
I mean, I liked my childhood.
Sure. No, I did too. Definitely. I mean, it helped shape what I do now with my kids.
Sure. Yeah. I
definitely things.
Definitely watch my kids more than anybody ever watched me.
Yeah, I know. My wife does not, like, I'm like, you can leave them alone. They're fine.
You can't.
Like,
Don't.
My parents left the house when I was a kid, whatever.
Dude, do you know how many times I almost set the house on fire? Nobody was watching me, and I used to light tissues on fire and spray them with hairspray.
Wow. Okay, Beavis.
And then one time I couldn't blow out the tissue because it was going up so fast. I just threw it on the floor and then ran away to get a Dixie cup out of the bathroom to pour the water on top of it, which thank God we didn't have carpeting because I think that's probably the only thing that saved us.
I didn't realize I was so close to death early in my life. Wow.
I don't know if you were even home.
I hope not.
And I used to light fires in the neighbor's yard, and a fireman came to the house.
What?
Fireman. Do you remember this? I think
it had to be after I was gone.
It was South Washington Street.
What?
Nobody was gone. I
don't remember this at all.
Mom said it was somebody from church that she asked to pretend to be a fireman. And
what?
That's what she said. So I was lighting fires in a cinder block.
Did he just have fireman cosplay that he showed up?
He just said, I'm a fireman. And I'm under 10 years old. So I'm like, yes, of course you are. Because adults don't lie.
What?
So I'm lighting fires in the neighbor's yard behind the house in a cinder block with a neighbor kid. And we were pretending we were homeless or something. Keeping warm by the fire. And I got caught. I don't know how I got caught. I don't know if the person whose yard it was like, oh my God. This, I don't even know how old it was, 7. And so I remember very vividly sitting on the steps. And remember the steps, you could see the front door. Sitting on the steps and feeling very ashamed. There's a knock at the door. Mom opens it. And this man walks in, says he's a fireman. And tells me the dangers of setting fires and not to do it anymore. And I was just like, oh my God.
So you got scared straight?
I did get scared straight. And I don't know what happened after that. If Mom was like, okay, thanks, and shut the door. I don't know what occurred afterwards. Maybe she knows the story, the rest of it. But she has since, when I related that memory to her, she was like, that wasn't a fireman. That was so-and-so from church.
Wow.
How did you get that person to take time out of their day just to come over and pretend to be a fireman to scare me?
That's literally incredible.
So yeah, you should watch your kids.
All right. Very good. So, all this to say, if you don't want kids, you probably shouldn't have them. Right. But as somebody on the other side of having kids, I wrestle with the difference of what my life would be without. My life is more fulfilling with them now. Let me caveat all that by saying my life is completely different with children than without. There had to be a change. I could not be the same person I was at 32. I had my first at 32. Couldn't be the same person I'd been through my 20s and early 30s. Could not continue to be that person. It had to change. Which, bringing it back to the awakening, the line when Edna says that she would not sacrifice everything for her children. She would sacrifice the unimportant things like money,
unessential,
or time,
she says,
or whatever. But she wouldn't sacrifice her core self. That really resonated with me.
Yeah. Well, she even said her life. She would, jump in front of a speeding carriage for them.
Right. She would lay down her life for her children, but wouldn't sacrifice herself.
Right.
So that really resonated with me. And it, in a way, made me feel better about the difference of my life now than my life pre-children.
Why is that? Because you haven't?
Because I don't feel like I have. Right.
Good.
I've given up certain things, obviously, and I've given up a lot of time, and I've given up maybe activities in the volume that I would have had prior to children. But I don't think that I have given up myself, right? I've basically co-opted them into my life to be my little playmates.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I've had to give up some things because I have idiot boys that touch and destroy things. So there are things that I've had to put off or delay that I would normally do. But otherwise, I think that at my core, I'm still the same person.
I'm waiting for Vincent to get old enough that I can craft him into my playmate. I'm like, you want to go rock climbing, dude? You want to go for a hike? You want to learn how to horseback ride? Because Ben's not a super outdoorsy person. I don't know if you noticed. He would
take Ellen. She's ready to go. She wants to go rock climbing for her birthday.
Totally. Like I'm sure nothing's open that you could like cough on and touch at the same time.
Well, true. Probably not.
But I can't like.
Kind of hard to sanitize a rock climbing wall after somebody's used it. Yeah.
No. I'm really hoping that he has some interests. Like we got him into video games so that we can actually play with him. And that's probably backfiring on us, but it is fun now that he's getting older and he can actually play. But Ben and I were talking about how different pandemic was for single people with no kids. And sometimes
life wouldn't change.
That would have been amazing.
It would have been fantastic. We would have loved it.
We probably would have drank a lot more.
I would have got insanely swole and jacked. It would have been amazing. It would have been like 8 hours of day of just working out.
I thought you said you peaked. You don't think you can get any bigger?
Yeah. I mean, physiologically, because of my body type, I probably can't without taking illegal assistance, which I'm not going to do. Steroids are bad, folks. I don't want any shriveled bits.
Shriveled bits. I also related to the same part you related to, but you talked about your wife. You need to help her have some of herself back because she gives it up for all.
She does. Everything. I'm kind of hoping actually that she listens to this book. I've been kind of pushing her. She's listened to a few of the episodes. I don't know where she is. She's way behind. Anyway, I might tell her to jump ahead and do this book.
Yeah, tell her we talked about her at length, and therefore her curiosity will be piqued.
Hopefully so.
But she described maybe putting the kids in school, and that would give her a ton of time back.
Yes, it would. It would. Kind of a bad time to do it right now, so maybe next year, but we'll see. So yeah, that whole idea of not giving up the self, that kind of really resonated. Did that really strike you?
Yes, because I'm working on not giving up myself, or I'm trying to regain, I think. And actually, now that Mom and Dad have moved here, we have reinforcements. It's so good to have reinforcements.
It takes a village, right? I mean,
it does. I mean, if you've got a village, you should totally use it.
You absolutely should.
I think about single parents often and like, oh my God.
It's a tough road, definitely.
It would be so tough. But, that's not the only part that really resonated with me. And actually, I was talking with my best friend, my favy, hey, Mallory, who listens to this a lot. And she texted me and she was like, oh my God, The Awakening is so good. And
had she read it before or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is actually another point that she made that I wrote down to bring up here is how the book resonates at different periods in our lives. But she was saying, and I felt this really hard too, that night when Leonce, Edna's husband, comes home, he's been at Klein's, he's a little drunk, he's had fun with the boys, and then he's like, hey, I think the kid has like a fever and you're a terrible mom and you should get up out of your deep sleep and go tend to them. Even though I'm the one who's awake right now, I'm going to go light a cigar and sit on the porch or whatever. And she does all that, and then she goes out and she sits, and then that wave of emotion and comes over her, and she's in a quote-unquote mood, and she just starts just crying. It doesn't really know where it comes from. I can relate to that too, like just having that.
She's a woman and she's overly emotional. God. That's where it comes from. Come on.
He doesn't mean that, folks. Maybe he means it a little bit. I don't know. I don't know. But having that, I don't feel that way often, but I have felt that way. Like, especially in moments where you feel like you're totally alone and you have to, especially if you're a new mom and you're nursing and you're trying to do everything. And I don't think it's necessarily related to parenthood either. Anyone can have that feeling. And I'm sure plenty of people have been having that feeling during like lockdown and isolation and all of that. But just that overwhelming outpouring of emotion. And then the other thing that she said that I just mentioned was how the book hits at different times, where she said the first time she read it through when she was younger, it was like, hold on, I wrote down her exact quote. Where did I put it? I don't know where I put it, that part. Anyway, but reading it...
That dead silence makes for riveting podcasting.
I'm going to edit that, so stop.
Oh, okay, sorry.
But feeling like Edna's life is just a mess, and like, poor Edna, she's doing this for no reason and not really getting what was happening in her life because I couldn't relate to it in college, which is the first time I read it. And it being heralded as this great work of literature, especially for women and feminist literature, and me being like, what is her problem? She seems kind of awful. And then reading it earlier this year, I was like, man, this book is way better than I remember it. And then reading it this time, I'm like, this is a masterpiece. I relate to Edna, though I don't always feel like Edna. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't want to drown myself. I love my kids. I really like my life.
You can understand Edna.
Right.
Without sympathizing with her.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I feel sad for her that society and life couldn't be different for her.
Right.
There was no other... I mean, that might be an arguable point, actually, that there was no other choice. Do you think she had any other choice? And still adhere to what she said, like not giving up the self.
So choice as far as killing herself? Or choice as in the choices she made that led her to Robert?
I would say the killing herself. Like, she felt like, I cannot live my life. I literally can't live my life the way I want to. I have no other option.
Right. So I think we should upfront say that if you are thinking of harming yourself, please contact the National Suicide Hotline. Probably should get the number to put in there. We do not advocate killing yourself. There is always a way out. Talk to somebody. Get help. Anyway, that out of the way.
You're so responsible.
It's in my blood at this point. So did she have that trapped feeling that she felt killing herself was the only way out? Did she have a choice? Not being a man of the late 19th century, I don't think I can answer definitively. If I layer modernity on it a little bit, then I think yes. I can put myself in a headspace and I can imagine a scenario. I think especially a lot of these books, a lot of these old books, a lot of the issues and a lot of the conflict could be resolved if people like talk to each other.
Oh God, yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Or get counseling. I mean, mental health and counseling is, even till now, it's just kind of starting to be unstigmatized.
Right.
But just talking to someone else and talking to a counselor can help resolve all these issues. You know, Edna and Léonce barely communicate with each other. I mean, they talk at each other, but they don't talk deeply. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like I'm trying to back it up to, if this were modern times, obviously Edna and Léonce could go see a marriage counselor, and if they were both committed to the marriage, they could work through the issues and figure something out, I believe. So she wouldn't have to kill herself.
They almost had one in Dr. Mandelet. Almost.
Dr. Mandelet wanted, right. He said,
it was so close.
Have her come see me.
Yeah.
Right. And even when she was killing herself, she thought, maybe if I'd seen Dr. Mandelet, it might have helped. Well.
Yeah.
So I guess in the context of the story, absolutely she had a choice and a way out, or at least an avenue to explore. She needed to go see Dr. Mandelet at a minimum. So there was at least an option that she, for whatever reason, chose not to take, right? Mm-hmm. I think if I layer 1899 man onto this, I can envision, because Léonce is so wealthy and he is mostly concerned with making money, mm-hmm. and when he goes to see when he sees Mandelet, he's not worried about affection or sex or anything. He's worried about her running the house and keeping up appearances and no scandal.
Right.
And
him
her
hurting
doing what she
hurting
needs
his
to
business
do.
or something. Right, his business prospects.
So I feel like there is a world in which if they had some level of communication, she could say, hey, look, man, let's level here. We have a sham marriage. I am cool keeping up appearances with you if you let me love Robert. Like maybe you hire him on as the house manager. That increases Robert's prospects. Maybe he runs the staff as like head butler or something. I don't know. So that obviates your need for the house staff being run properly. I can go up to the atelier and paint. Yeah. You know, Robert obviously likes the kids. So I feel like there was, you know, you do what you do, you make your money, it's all good. And, you know, and I will go, you know, and then he probably would say, well, you have to come with me to these societal things every once in a while and at least appear to be my wife. And, you know, you have to hold your Tuesdays. You got to meet these people. You know, maybe he can gatekeep a little bit and they can work together. So I can envision a world in which she would have another option if she would just stinking talk to the dude.
And they have so much money that options are actually open to them because she doesn't have to give herself to the kids. They have staff, you know, and she could be
right.
I'm sure that's not an enjoyable life for kids necessarily, but it could be like, well, we hang out with mom and she paints us and then we go have fun with our nurse or whatever.
Well, she even has a cover story. I mean, she had an agent selling her paintings. So she obviously had enough skill to do that. So there is cover stories that she and Robert can go to New York for a month or go to Paris for a month to an exhibition or something. You know, she has a cover there that's totally legit. And then that probably would increase Leonce's cachet in society. Oh, my wife is now a famous painter. Oh.
Yeah. So she did have options. She didn't think she had options, but she did. But as Chopin's writing this as, you know, that would even be scandalous. I don't know. But I could see, and I'm sure there are people who have those kinds of arrangements, especially if you're a public figure and you have to keep up appearances.
I mean, look at our president.
Yeah. I mean, they both know what, Anyway. They both know what
she barely makes an effort to keep up appearances, but anyway.
Yeah. She's like, I will smile and stand next to you, and that is it.
For literally 3 seconds, and then I'm done.
But, you know, in the book, Edna is kind of in between the two options, as Kate Chopin is showing it to us. You can be Adele Ratignolle and be the perfect wife and mother, which no hate on Adele. She liked her life, I think. And she and her husband talked all the time, and they really enjoyed each other's company. And then Madame Rice on the other side. So these are her two friends, aka I think her two options in life. You could be a weird outcast.
Oh, true. True.
Or you can be...
Yeah, I forgot about Rice. Yeah.
Yeah, who's pretty cool, I think, you know.
But never married, never had kids.
Right.
But she was an artist. And
she's kind of curmudgeonly... But she plays beautiful music. She still goes to Grand Isle. She's got her little apartment. Like, that's what that's what Edna's heading towards. You know, she gets her little pigeon house. That's all she needs.
Edna's straddling, little place. Because as Ratignolle, or as Rice says, the artist has to have courage.
Right. And she...
If you're going to do this, you got to go full bore.
And she told her about, your wings better be strong if you're going to do this. If you're going to soar. And I'm wondering if Madame Rice is, you know, standing looking at her with her, you know, ultra muscular wings spread before her, metaphorically, as like, I kind of did this in a way. But she also says in that same paragraph about having strong wings that it's basically pitiful, or how sad it is if you flutter broken to the ground. And at the end of the book, which... This brings me to the point that I wanted to make about how well crafted this book is. So Rice says that thing about how sad it is for a bird to flutter back to earth or back to the ground. And then as Edna is heading towards the water, you know, it says, all along the white beach, up and down, there was no living thing in sight. A bird with a broken wing was beating the air above, reeling, fluttering, circling, disabled, down, down to the water. And I was like, oh my God, this is the first time I've recognized.
That was in the last, I totally missed that. That was in the last chapter?
Yeah, it's...
Oh, man.
It's like literally right a couple paragraphs before the very, very end. It's before she puts on her... I totally missed it the previous 2 times as well. And so I feel like that's what Edna's thinking. She's like, I'm not strong enough to do this. So that's it. I gotta go.
Right.
I really like...
Yeah, wow. That's tight. I completely missed that metaphorical. It's so funny because the book is so short and there's really so little in there that every sentence is meaningful. So for the fact that I would just read that and elide over that and miss that.
I feel like if you're going to write one, like you're never going to write again, Chopin did a pretty good job. Even though she probably wanted to. And she's got other stories out there, but nothing is like The Awakening.
Sure. I
don't know what else there is to say, honestly. I feel like we've hit craft, we've hit theme, we've hit, what's the word? You know, our connections to it. I'm actually surprised you connected to it as strongly as you did, because, you know, you're the white man devil of the world.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that, honestly. I was thinking through, you know, obviously the book was not written for me. I'm not the target audience, but I understand it. I don't think men in that time period understood it. You know, I think in our society, we're not perfected yet. We still have a lot of toxic masculinity and whatnot. But I think we are getting to the point where you can have a full, rich life. You can do kind of stereotypical dude things, but you can also enjoy stereotypical not dude things. And it doesn't, like, you have, I guess you have to have strong wings, right? You have to be strong enough to be like, dude, I don't care what society thinks about X, Y, or Z. I'm going to enjoy this because it's good.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I feel like men and women are almost equally constrained in like the things you can and can't do because they're pointlessly and needlessly gendered. The only difference, I think, is the mobility aspect, especially for white men who have enough money to be mobile and have extra privilege. Like, you know, societally, you're not supposed to, you know, show emotion, and that sucks. That's pretty deep-seated. That's a pretty deep-seated disadvantage, I think.
Yeah, it sucks. It's good to cry sometimes. You gotta let it out.
Yeah. But
whatever, I still go hard in the gym. It don't matter.
But I think it you know, if Léonce wanted to leave, I don't think it would be nearly as much scandal as if Edna left, right? It's like, that's what men do. Like, it's always like, boys will be boys. That's what men do. Locker room talk. Like, there's always these excuses.
Well, look at Robert and Arobin. I mean, they obviously, sure, there's a little bit of scandal attached to their name, but it hasn't otherwise hurt them in society.
It hurts them. It doesn't hurt them. But if a woman has her name so much as mentioned alongside Alcée Arobin, she could be ruined simply for that. But he goes about his life fully free. Maybe he's like emotionally, you know, he's an emotional desert, but he doesn't even know who he is. But in the terms of the things that he can do and where he can go, he's got no restrictions there.
Exactly. So, yeah.
I don't know.
So what do we think? So we think we slept through, or we were awake for this one? Awake for the awakening?
I was fully awake. Fully awake.
I was surprisingly awake. I was pleasantly surprised by this. I was wondering and hesitant and curious at the beginning, but once we got going and got into it, like, I was fully into it. Like, I actually connected with it more than I thought I would. So yeah, I was definitely awake for this one.
Sweet. I'm relieved because it was my suggestion, and I'm like, okay, here we go. #feminism. I don't know what he's gonna think of this book, but I'm glad.
I wonder. I mean, this would be obviously not for the pod, but I wonder if a more modern, quote unquote, feminist book, if I would not connect with it as well as this one, because this was more subtle.
Modern in the sense of like the last 10 years, or modern in the sense of like civil rights movement, equal rights amendment movement era, like women's
I would think probably more nowadays, because I think equal rights amendment, civil rights, I mean, I agree with those things. I think I don't think that would be shocking or whatnot.
I mean, do you want to do Betty Friedan's The Feminine Mystique? No. That's not in public domain.
Probably not in public domain.
No. Yeah, I'd be interested too.
Yeah.
But they're not in public domain because they're more modern, so we're not going to be doing it on the
Well, true. Yeah. In a completely modern book would not be public domain, but anyway.
Yeah.
But getting into the public domain, it is fall. Tomorrow is October.
Woof.
Well, tomorrow recording this. It's already October if you're listening to this.
Yeah.
So the leaves are changing. It's cooler. And this is like a scary time. Halloween's coming.
No, I thought you meant like...
Well, yes, the world is just scary in general, but now it's even scarier because Halloween is coming.
Spooky.
Ooh. We have a spooky, scary treat for our next book.
What is it?
What is it? What is it?
What is
our
it?
next book, we are going to go all the way back. We're going to the OG of vampire lore. We're reading Bram Stoker's Dracula. Is it Bram Stoker or Bram Stoker? I don't know. Bram Stoker?
I like to say Bram.
Bram?
Bram.
Oh, you're going... He was Irish.
Bram.
Bram Stoker. I don't know. He was Irish. Anyway.
Bram Stoker.
Bram Stoker.
Bram
anyway, so we're
like
reading
Bram.
Dracula next. And this is... We're going to power this one. These are going to be full fair warning. We're going to get this done by Halloween. So if we're going to do this, we got to truck on through, because this is a long one to get done in 4 weeks. But by golly, I think we can do it.
You can
so
do
for
it.
Next
we
week,
can do it.
Or I guess not next week, tomorrow in your feed, you will find chapters 1 through 7. Mm-hmm. And we're going to try to do it a little bit differently on our readings. This is a fun one. If you've never actually read Dracula before, it is written, I guess, not retroactively, but it's written. It's not chronological. You are learning the story through journal entries and letters and diaries post facto, right? Like all of the action, quote unquote, in real time has already happened, and you're piecing it together as we go. There are a few male character entries and female character entries, and for the most part, it's not 100% equal, but for the most part, I will read the male character entries, and Mare is going to read the female character entries. So to kind of get the voice a little more explicit in your mind, it's going to kind of break down through the middle part of the book. So Mare is going to have to read some male stuff as well. But at least for this first episode, it's going to be pretty clear male, female characters, who's writing and what's going on.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear your Dracula accent. Are you going to do one?
So that's a great question, right? So a lot of what we know of, it kind of started, so Bram Stoker took old legends from Romania and Transylvania's in modern day Romania, and old folklore legends, and he wrote this, kind of compiled them a little bit and put it together, and all of what we think of as the antecedents from that kind of come from this book. He's sort of codified what we think of as quote unquote vampire, right? Mm-hmm. Until Stephanie Meyer wrecked it with Twilight. Anyway. So I don't know. Dracula, we think of, Dracula, blah, blah, blah. But is that...
I don't say blah, blah, blah.
Exactly, right. So I think as we read this book, I think that the sort of caricature, I don't know if that is what Stoker intended his creation to become.
Is Hotel Transylvania one of your kids' movies? Probably not.
It is not.
No.
They've seen a little bit at a friend's house once, but oh my goodness. Anyway.
I think they're relatively funny because Vince likes them all because he's really into monsters and Halloween, like all year's Halloween here. Anyway, yeah. That's what Adam Sandler's version of Dracula.
Yes, Adam it is Sandler very overdone, and it is very exactly that. What you think of, So anyways, that's what we'll have for you starting tomorrow, and we'll wrap that up by Halloween. So you'll be all ready for the spooky season, and you'll know why a lot of the things that we associate with Dracula, where they come from.
And if you don't listen to the pod, the day it comes out, which why wouldn't you? But if you don't, maybe you'll listen at Christmas, and you'll be ready for Christmas with Dracula. I think that's fine.
Christmas with Dracula.
That's our new fan fiction.
Christmas with Dracula. Oh my. Just don't invite him in, right?
Yeah. I mean, simple. You just don't invite him in. Easy.
All right. We got anything else for The Awakening? We liked it. Good book. If you haven't, I don't know if you would, why would you listen to this if you haven't listened to the book or read it? But if you have, for some reason you're just listening to the wrap episode, go back and listen to the book.
Yeah. Or write to us or hit us up on social media. Where can they do that, Kyle?
They can do that on all the socials at CYST Pod. That is, when I say all, it's just the majors. It's Twitter, it's Instagram, and it's the Facebook. You can also send us long form. I mean, if you're like a grandpa or something, older person do people still use email? I don't even use email really, but we have email. cystpod@gmail.com. I shouldn't bag on email. Email is good. You can write longer things.
Everyone uses email. I don't know what you're talking about.
See,
we just got an email from a listener.
But we're old. I don't think people like under 25 use email. If you're 25 or younger and listening to this, send me an email. You probably won't. You can DM me on Twitter. Prove to me you use email, 25-year-old and youngers.
Yeah, we'll use the fact that nobody emails this obscure podcast as proof that nobody under 25 emails. Evidence.
I think so.
Science.
I think that's a good test right
Hypothesis. There.
All right. So until next time, this has been Classics You Slept Through. That new student teacher is running study holiday, so we're just going to cut it.
Peace.